Now, as usual, you come to us with another fascinating topic. I'll let you announce it.
How do you choose to react?
This sounds to me it could be based a bit on experience as well.
Well, yes, of course. But, when things have happened to me in the past, whether it's this broken wrist or the cancer or whatever, I've been fortunate in so much that I already had been thinking about all these topics for such a long time that it was relatively easy to implement that which I talk about.
Right.
It was sort of like second nature. And that's what I keep telling people. Once you go down this road of becoming aware of how you are choosing to react, as you do it more and more in a direction that gives you a good feeling, a good state of being, you will see that automatically that's where you're going to want to go the next time something happens where you do have some choices about maybe reacting poorly or reacting in a different way. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that if you are going to let externals control that way of feeling and being that is going on inside of you, then you are at the mercy of externals, of all those external situations that occur to us. And if you fall and break your wrist, or if you get a cancer diagnosis, or if you are in a car accident, or if you lose your job, or if your spouse leaves you, or if something happens, God forbid, to one of your kids, or if, as just happened to a dear friend of mine, your pet has to be put to sleep. These are all very, very difficult things for us.
Definitely.
And we have to choose how we react when they happen. Not so much we have to choose, but we may choose.
That's the key, isn't it? Because not everybody decides to exercise that possibility.
Exactly. But most people don't decide not to exercise that possibility because they're not aware of the fact that they do have that choice. And because most people believe, well, what do you expect if such and such has happened to me? How dreadful. I mean, how else do you expect me to react?
Sometimes maybe we react because we know people expect us to react a certain way.
Of course.
People are looking at you and they're waiting for that.
Which is why it's also very important to surround yourself with people that kind of function in a similar way. So if you do have a bad, let's say, health diagnosis and you buy into that culture, you're doing yourself a great deal of harm, as opposed to surrounding yourself with people who are not expecting you to react in this dreadful, painful, sorrowful, poor me, or woe betide, or, whatever way. And who think that it makes sense that you react in a way that is good for you. And we know from a physiological point of view, and with our MRI scanners, and with taking, the proof of the pudding is, like, in the end, the blood pressure, and in the brain imaging, the fact that you have a much more relaxed brain as opposed to this very tense and anxious brain. The proof of the pudding is in all those tests that can be shown to change once you implement some of these ways of different thinking, where you are taking the choice to have a choice.
So it kind of comes down to, you can choose to see yourself as a victim of your circumstances and sort of crumple under those, or you can choose to see yourself as someone who can act within whatever circumstances come to you and go forward.
Of course. And but it's not just only the victim mentality, it's also the mentality of this is the way life is. We buy into a lot of these myths. Let's say I'm an African American living in the U.S. I may buy into the myth that I'm a second-class citizen. And even though I don't necessarily believe it, but since I believe that everybody else believes it, it means that my life just is not going to be as good. I'm just reading a fascinating book about this, so I'm thinking about that topic. Or perhaps you work in a company that has a purported glass ceiling for women, and you may buy into the myth, well, that's just the way it is in Spain or in Colombia or wherever you're living.
And I'm not going to challenge it.
And I'm not going to challenge it, but because of that, I'm going to accept the fact that I'm in this second or third or fourth tier position where I don't really have to be. It may mean I have to move to another company in order to change, to go past the glass ceiling. But it means that depending on my attitude, I am going to make a choice that gives me the possibility of moving beyond where I currently am. If I have a bad health diagnosis and I say, well, this is what happens after so and so many years of eating poorly or smoking or not exercising or whatever it is that's happened in your life. And therefore, of course, it's logical that this has happened. And furthermore, the people that get this typically die after a year. I mean, you do.
We all have to die of something. That's the one you always hear.
Yes,
we
all have to
die of somewhere,
yes.
sometime.
And, I see a lot of people precisely in the cancer sector. I see a lot of people fighting like troopers to get healthy with their body. They're allowing their body to go through all the chemo or the radiation or all the different treatments they have to make and operations and so on. But they forget about fighting with their head.
Yeah.
And so in the head, which is the really important place, if you read Bruce Lipton and The Biology of Belief, he's the cellular biologist I speak of frequently, the belief of whatever it is that is in your head influences your body to such a degree so that if you choose to react that way, so yes, I'm fighting with my body and I'm doing my utmost to comply with all the physician's instructions and what everybody is telling me to do. But am I going to any, for example, support groups?
Right.
Am I reading things that keep my mind in that good place that we've talked about so often, energetic, a high energetic frequency? Am I choosing to do this, or am I choosing to buy into the myth? So yes, as you said earlier, there's the victim mentality. That is one thing that has to be looked at from having a choice point of view. And then there's this other, that I'm calling buying into the myth of whatever it is, in your particular circumstances that you happen to believe in because you haven't questioned it and you haven't asked yourself, do I have a different choice here?
Right. Okay, isn't that fascinating? And we can look around us every single day at any moment, and we can see all of this in practice. We can see people sort of dividing themselves in between those who, are looking at how people choose their reactions, basically.
Yes.
And those who choose to actually react by going and doing something, and those who sort of crumple under the circumstances and give in and say, well, this is just the way it is. I can't do anything about it.
Or maybe not even crumple, but they accept. There's a wonderful expression. Well, it's not wonderful at all. It's awful, horrific. But there's an expression that wonderfully conveys this in Mexico, which is ni modo. And it approximately means, well, there's nothing that can be done. That's just the way it is.
Right.
And it implies a tacit and almost apathetic acceptance of circumstances. And I'm not saying you have to fight. I'm simply saying you have to change the way you look at it.
Right.
Because once you do that, you begin to change whatever it is that is not to your liking. If you are Nelson Mandela and you are stuck in Robben Island for 28 years prisoner, you obviously cannot force your guards to let you go and return you to Cape Town or Johannesburg.
Right.
But you can certainly not think in this, oh, well, that's just the way it is style. I mean, I am a black person in apartheid Africa, and that means that if I go out and give certain speeches, obviously I'm going to get put into jail, so that's just the way it is.
And then give up.
And then give up. Or become full of hatred.
Right.
I have a choice here, and my choice is I'm going to continue working on whatever it is I believe in, even if it's only in my head. Let's say they don't even allow me books, or in my conversations with the other prisoners while we're working, in the quarry or whatever it is they were doing. But I'm going to continue working on moving this forward inside my head so that in the future, if I ever have the possibility, I'm going to be ready.
Yes. Isn't that
so
something?
I'm working in a really horrible job that I hate, and I hate my bosses, and I hate my coworkers, and I hear this a lot in my office, that people come to me, and this is their big problem. And I'm really meant to be doing da-da-da, but it's impossible because you know how the market is here, or I haven't got the right degrees, or people want more experience. And anyway, so I can't get this other job, so I have to put up with the job I have because I have a family I have to take care of, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, that may be true. You might have to stick it out